Hey Tig Tigers, it's Miss Tremont, and today we are going to be talking about multi-step problems, and we're going to be focusing on the skill. But first, before we do that, we are going to do a warm-up and then a quick review, and then we will jump into our work. Okay, so the first things you need, again, we need a pencil and we need a notebook. So anything to write with and anything to write on. So if you have a whiteboard, that's awesome. Or if you have a chalkboard or any crayon, marker, anything that you have that you can write with and you can write on. Okay, you can stop this video and get those items and then we can continue. All right. So the first thing we are going to do as our warm-up is our choral counting. We're going to start counting by fives and then we're going to start counting by 25. So the first one is going to be our counting by five. So I'm going to pull up my, share my screen with you and we're going to do that. Okay. So you should be looking at my screen at the choral counting tool. And we're going to start at the number 25 and count by 5. So I want you to call out loud and tell me what you think the next number will be, and then we're going to keep going. Okay? So our next number after 25 by counting by 5 should be 30. The next number, 35. 40. 45. I like to go back and forth, little dance. 50. 55. 60. 65. 70. 75. 80. 85. 90. 95. 100. 105. 110. 115. 120. 125. So hopefully you have noticed a pattern when we're doing our choral counting. You may have noticed that in the ones place, what do we keep seeing? And if you said we keep seeing a 0 and a 5 in the ones place, that is correct, okay? It's either always going to be a 5 or a 0 in the ones place. And it is alternating, okay? And we can also see we're going from 60, 65, and then it's changing the tens place. So it's going 70, 75. Okay, so that's what you should be seeing. All right, now we are going to, go to our 25s and start counting by 25. So we're going to start here. And what do you think the next number should be when we're doing our choral counting? And I want you to think about your quarters. How would we count our quarters? Okay, so we have 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200, 225, and what do you think the next one would be? 250, 275, 300, 325, 350, 375, and 400. So you should be seeing a pattern here as well. So as you can see, it's almost like our quarters. We have 25, 50, 75, $1. So it's the same thing. You're always going to either have a 5 or a 0 in the ones place. Okay, and it's either going to be 25, 50, 75, or the zeros. Awesome job, guys. Now for our warm-up, we are going to look at this flip chart. So I'm going to stop my share with you and open up, share my screen again to show you my flip chart. And we are going to talk about bar graphs. And remember, bar graphs are just an easier way to display data. So we are going to use the data over here that it has favorite activities. That is the title of our data. and we're going to transfer it to our bar graph. Okay, so always important, we need to always have a title because we won't know what our bar graph is about without a title. We also need to have labels. So as you can see, we have favorite activities and it lists music, dance, art, and drama. So those are also on our bar graph, music, dance, art, and drama. And we have placed a label called activity to label those activities. On the bottom here, we have our numbers, and that is going to display the number of students that is their favorite activity. So we always need to make sure that we are labeling our graph correctly so we know what our graph is about. First, we're going to look at music, and it says 3 people like music as their favorite activity. So we are going to shade in our bar graph to reflect it being 3. So we would look over here on music, knowing that there is 3, we would shade in 1, 2, 3 squares because we want it to come all the way down and line up with the number 3. I'm just going to use my highlighter here, and I'm going to use the color red. And I am going to shade in those squares. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And there is my bar for music. Okay. Now looking over at dance, dance has 4 people right here. And so we are going to come to our bar graph and find dance, and we are going to use, I'm going to use a different color, I'm going to use green, and I am going to put up to 4 on my bar graph to represent dance. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 because we want it to line up all the way next to the number 4. If you go all the way down, you can find the number of students, and we can see there is 4 for dance. For art, art has 1 person, so we would come to art on our bar graph, and we would shade in just 1 little square because we're only going to do, it needs to come up to the number 1. Going to be placed right here. We're going to shade in 1 square. And then finally, drama, we can see that 6 people liked drama. So we are going to use our highlighter and shade in all the way up to the number 6. So you can either do it this way, or you can find the number and then go across as well. You can go back and forth. Okay. And as we can see, the favorite activity, just by looking at our bar graph, because it's much easier to look at it now, is drama because it had the biggest bar or the biggest number. Okay. And now that we have taken our data and put it into our bar graph, we now need to be able to interpret that data. So we have a new bar graph here, and this is called school supply sales. And as you can see, there's our title. We also have our labels, which is extremely important because we need to know what our bar graph is about. So we have our school supplies, binder, notebook, highlighter, folder, crayon, and clipboard. And we have the number of items sold, and it has the numbers down here. Okay, so we are going to answer our questions using our bar graph. Okay, so it says how many students bought crayons. So we need, when it says how many, we know that they want a number. Please excuse my bad handwriting again. And we want to know which ones like crayons. That's our important information. So we're going to come over here. We find crayons. We're going to go to that bar, and we're going to go all the way across to where it stops. And we're going to go down and find the number of items sold, and we see that that is 7. Okay, I'm just going to write that here. So we know that there is 7 students that bought crayons because we looked at our bar graph, we saw where the bar stopped, we went all the way down to find the number. Okay, the next question, which school supply did exactly 9 students buy? Okay, so we're looking for 9 students. We don't know which school supply it is, but we do know that there was only 9 students that bought it, so we could go to the items sold. We could find the number 9, go straight up, and we see that that bar is the highlighter. Okay, so the highlighter, exactly 9 students bought those, okay? Our next question, we are looking at which item did the fewest people buy. So we know it's not a number. They want to know which item. So we're going to look at the actual school supplies, and we want to know who bought the least of those school supplies. So we want to find the smallest number, and the best way to do that is to look at our bars and to see which bar has is the smallest one. So we can see that the bar right here only goes up to 6. And if we go across, we'll find that that was the clipboard. Okay. And then finally, how many students bought binders? So when they say how many, they were wanting a number and they want to know how many bought binders. And so when we look at our chart, we can see that the binders is on our school supplies. It's right here. And we can follow that bar graph all the way across. And then wherever it stops, go all the way down to find that number. And we see that it is the number 14. So we would put number 14 right here in that question. Okay. I hope that was a great review. I'm going to stop my share because now we are going to get into our multi-step problems and actually just work on the skill today. So I'm going to introduce it with one of my problems that I have created. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. And oops, share my screen. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen, and we are looking at a word problem. I'm going to talk to you about this, and it says, Ms. Tremont baked 235 cookies on Monday. She baked 155 more cookies on Tuesday, and then my family, they ate 127 cookies. And so how many cookies do I have left? Okay, and so we're looking at this is the same thing as we've been doing since last week, where we are analyzing our problem so we can get our number sentence. And so I am going to look at my problem, and now when I have a multi-step problem, out what are my 3 numbers and what are we going to do? Are we going to add or are we going to subtract? Okay, so when I bake those 235 cookies, and I baked 155 more cookies. If I baked 155 more, that means I'm adding to my previous 235. So that means I'm going to combine those two totals. So I have 235, and I'm going to add, because I have 155 more. And then now that I have my 155 more, but look, my family ate 127 cookies. They were very hungry. Okay, and if they ate those cookies, they are no longer there. So that means that we are going to subtract. That's telling us we're subtracting because I no longer have those cookies. So that is my second time. And how many am I going to subtract is 127. Okay, so that is my number sentence so far. So how many cookies were left is another clue that we are subtracting at that second point, okay? So we're adding and then subtracting. So remember when we were doing our two-step addition and subtraction, when we are doing that, we need to separate our numbers, okay? So we only want to do these first two numbers. This is our first equation that we should be looking at. We shouldn't be worried about that third number. We need to get the answer to our first two numbers, and then we can subtract our third number. But our only focus right now is looking at these two numbers. So here is my algorithm showing these two numbers. Again, if you want to turn your paper to the side so you can line up your numbers, that is perfectly fine, whatever helps you, okay? So you could have it looking like that, or you can turn it to the side. So when you turn it to the side, it will show you the numbers. It has those lines on your paper that will show you how to line up your numbers. Okay, so remember we're only worried about these first two numbers. We're splitting them. And so we want to get this answer first. So we have 235 plus 155. Of course, that would be 10. So we have our 0 at the bottom. 1 goes at the top. We don't want to forget about that. 1 plus 3 would be 4. 4 plus 5 would be 9. And then now that we are done with the tens, we're going to move over to the hundreds. So 2 plus 1 would be 3. And so far, we've gotten 390, which is the sum of these two numbers. But we're not finished. We still need to do our second part. So we need to take this number and bring it up here because we still need to subtract that 127. And of course, make sure that you're lining up your numbers. We're lining up our hundreds, our tens, and our ones. That's extremely important. Okay. And again, we always start with the ones just like we did on our addition. And we have 0 minus 7. So remember when this number is bigger than the top number, you're going to have to go next door. Okay. So if we have more on the floor, we go next door and get 10 more. So instead of 9 tens, we're going to have 8 tens. And we're going to take that 10 and split it apart into ones. So we're just adding a 1 in front of it. So that will be 10. Now we can solve that problem. If we have 10, we take away 7, it would be 3. Now we move over to the tens place value, 8 minus 2. And then the hundreds place value, which is 3 minus 1. And now we have our answer, okay? So our answer should be 263. Because remember, we split our numbers. So you should be doing 235 plus 155 first. Once we get our answer, we take our answer and then subtract that's third number, okay? So that is our first example. We're going to do a couple more examples. And sometimes when we're doing multi-step problems, you could be doing addition and addition on both of them, or you could be doing mix like we just did, addition and subtraction, or sometimes you can also do subtraction and subtraction. So it just depends. It's very important to look at what sign you should be using, okay? So our next problem is going to be 234 plus 356 plus 189. Okay, so that is our multi-step problem that we are going to do. Again, our first thing that we should do is split apart our numbers, okay? So I want to only focus on this equation. We're not worried about the third number right now. So this is the same thing we have been doing with our 2-digit. It's the same, and so we're doing the same thing with our 3-digit. You're only focusing on these two numbers to get that answer, and once you get your answer, you can put get your third number. So 234, we are going to add 356. So again, we're only focusing on these two numbers right now. And make sure that you are lining up your hundreds, your tens, and your ones. And we always start at the ones place value, 4 plus 6 being 10. We need one at the top because we don't want to forget about it. 1 plus 3 would be 4. And 4 plus 5 would be 9. We didn't have to regroup because this is a single digit. And now we're going to move over to the hundreds place value. 2 plus 3 would be 5. Are we done? No, not at all. We still have that third number that we have to worry about. Okay. Remember, we're going to take our answer, we're going to put it up at the top here. And we are going to add that 189. And make sure that we are lining up our hundreds, our tens, and our ones. We start again on our ones. 0 plus 9 should be 9. Now we have moved over to our tens place value, and 9 plus 8 should be 17. Our 7 going down at the bottom of the tens, and we are regrouping and putting our 1 at the top. Again, we don't want to forget about that 1. 1 plus 5 would be 6, and 6 plus 1 would be 7. Now we are finished. Your answer should be 779, okay? So remember that we are always taking our time. We are splitting. We're only doing the first two numbers first. We get our answer, and then we can do our third number. Always paying close attention to what sign we are using. We're going to do one more example. And that example is 764. I want you to subtract 243 and 107. Okay, so looking at our number sentence, the first thing that we should do, I know it looks intimidating, but the first thing we should do, we need to split. We need to just only look at the first two numbers, okay? So 764 minus 243. Always paying close attention to the sign. Okay, we always make sure that we are lining up our hundreds, our tens, and our ones. And again, if you want to turn your paper to the side, if that helps you, that is perfectly fine. We always start at the ones, 4 minus 3 being 1. We move to our tens place value. 6 minus 4 is 2. And then our hundreds place value. 7 minus 2 is 5. Ooh, lucky for us, we did not have to regroup. But we are not finished. We have our answer, but we have to subtract this third number. So we have 521. And how did we get that 521? That was our answer from our first two numbers, okay? So 521, we want to subtract 107. That is our third number. Always, we want to make sure that our hundreds, our tens, and our ones are lined up correctly. We start at the ones. We have 1, and we want to subtract 7. Now, we know that this is a bigger number at the bottom, so we need to go next door and get 10 more. So instead of 2 tens, we're going to take one of them away, and that should be 1 10. And then we're going to take that 10, break it apart into ones. So now instead of 1 1, we're going to have 11 ones. So 11 minus 7, your answer should be 4. Now we have moved over to the tens place value, 1 minus 0, which is 1. Remember. And then our hundredths place value, 5 minus 1, which is 4. So now we have found our answer. Remember splitting these first two only focusing on these first two numbers to get our answer, and then taking our answer and subtracting that third number. Okay? So I hope that was great practice on your assignment today. You're going to have have 6 problems. So I want you to focus on using this strategy. Make sure you're paying attention to the sign, because with our mixed problems, or with some of our problems, you could have addition, you could have subtraction, or you could have addition, subtraction, addition. So there's a lot of different combinations. So it's very important to always pay attention to that sign to know what you should be doing next. Okay, so I hope you'll had enjoyed this lesson. If you have any questions, you can always get in contact with me or Miss Austin, and I hope to see y'all soon. Have a great day, Tigers.